Ferrari just filed a formal complaint with the FIA about the Mercedes W17's front wing. The charge is clear: the wing takes too long to close. Onboard footage from the Chinese Grand Prix shows what looks like an 800 millisecond changeover time, double the 400 millisecond cap written into the rules. Nicolas Tombazi's office is now looking at the data, and Toto Wolff seems to have seen this coming weeks ago. But before anyone starts throwing around the word illegal, the real picture under the rules is far more tangled than the headlines make it sound. And depending on which piece of proof you focus on, this story leads to very different endings. 3 months before that complaint landed on Tombazi's desk in Paris, the Mercedes W17 was just another car rolling through checks at pre-season testing in Barcelona. The front wing looked odd. The strange pylon placement got noticed in the tech press, but nobody was filing protests. Nobody was timing wing movements frame by frame. The car was fast, the design was different, and the paddock moved on. That was February 2026. By March 15th, everything about that front wing had become the most watched piece of carbon fiber in the sport. The footage that kicked off the whole storm appeared within hours of Kimi Antonelli crossing the finish line at Shanghai, locking in Mercedes' second straight 1-2. Slow-motion breakdown of the W17's onboard camera feed showed up on social media, comparing the front wing's active aero movement at different corners around the Shanghai track. The video was slowed to 4 times normal speed with side-by-side views, and the findings were exact. At turn 14, the heavy braking zone at the end of the back straight, where cars slow down from roughly 320 km per hour, the wing appeared to take about 800 milliseconds to shift from its low drag setup to the high downforce spot. The flap moved, paused, then dropped into its final shape in what looked like 2 clear stages rather than one smooth sweep. At turn 9, which puts less air load on the front wing, the same wing closed much faster, almost snapping shut by contrast. The video blew up within 24 hours. The frame counts were matched across several platforms, all landing at roughly the same 800 millisecond number for the high load corners. The changing closing speed is what sets this apart. A wing that always closes slowly might just have a weak motor. That would be a wear and tear concern. A wing that closes at different speeds based on how much air force is pressing on it points to something built on purpose, a system whose movement shifts with load, and that gap decides whether the FIA is looking at a broken part or a planned feature. Ferrari moved fast. On Sunday evening, right after the race, Ferrari sent a formal request for clarity to the FIA. This was not a full protest, which would force a steward's hearing and could lead to getting thrown out. A request for clarity forces the FIA's rule experts to look at the question and give an answer without locking Ferrari into all or nothing stakes. Ferrari pointed at what the Italian press called a doppia phase system, a 2-phase or 2-stage wing closing. That label would become the center of the technical fight that followed. Every rival team on the grid bolts their nose-mounting pylons to the front wing's main plane, the big lower piece closest to the ground. With the pylons locked there, the 2 upper pieces swing freely as the active aero parts, tilting between high downforce and low drag angles on signal from the FIA standard ECU. 2 moving parts per side. Mercedes took a totally different path. They bolted the pylons to the middle plane instead, turning it into a locked support piece. Only the top flap moves, 1 moving part per side, not 2. The middle plane sits where the highest air load builds up during fast corners. Locking the pylons at that peak load point fights the twisting forces the flap creates when it moves. The result is a tighter, more stable wing that resists, bending under the huge air forces the 2026 cars create at full speed. This setup also opens a wide air channel under the nose cone, between the main plane and the now locked middle plane. Mercedes packed that channel with air-shaping fins that push cleaner airflow toward the floor's front edge and the ground effect tunnels. Copying this is not about swapping one flap. It means rethinking the whole front end of the car. This choice looked like a small design quirk in February. It is now the single most closely watched aero decision of the 2026 season. 2 rival theories have come forward to explain what the fan footage caught, and they lead to very different legal outcomes. The first theory says Mercedes built the top flap to finish its closing in 2 clear stages rather than one smooth swing. The first stage happens within 400 milliseconds, pushing the flap far enough through its arc to clear the sensor that feeds data back to the FIA standard ECU. The system logs the wing as done. Then a second, slower stage kicks in, where the flap eases into its final aero shape over the next 400 milliseconds. The wing would show up as closed on the FIA's live data feed, while staying slightly open in real aero terms. If this theory is right, the legal fallout is harsh. A 2-stage system built to fool the sensor halfway through a half-finished shift would count as a planned cheat of the tracking system. That steps over the line from grey area into a real rule break. The second theory paints a very different picture. The idea is that Mercedes fitted a pressure-fed bypass bypass valve in the hydraulic motor that drives the top flap. Under heavy air load, the valve would choke off fluid pressure buildup in the motor's lines, making it move more slowly when the wing is under heavy outside force. In the garage, with no air load, the motor snaps the flap shut well within 400 milliseconds. On track at 300 km/h, the load-driven slowdown creates a natural lag. The wing hangs in its low drag spot deeper into the braking zone, not because the system is tricking a sensor, but because physics is slowing the parts down. This theory is much harder to call illegal. If the motor works within the time limit, under test conditions, and outside air forces are what cause the slower shift on track, Mercedes could say the design follows every rule. The motor does what it is told to do, the air does the rest. Both theories share a common speed gain. Keeping the low drag shape longer into braking zones means higher straight line speed deeper into corner entry. The slower shift to high downforce gives the driver a smoother weight change during braking, and the longer low drag window could stretch the MGUK energy capture period. Ferrari's qualifying pace in Shanghai told the story well enough. Mercedes' straight line speed made the silver arrows hard to fight, but the raw speed trap numbers told a different story. Gabriele Bortolito's Audi topped the trap at 322.5 km/h, while George Russell came in at 297.9. Mercedes ran higher downforce levels and still beat the field. They were winning on total aero output, making more downforce for less drag cost than anyone else on the grid. That detail matters, because it hints that the front wing's movement is part of a bigger aero game plan, rather than one trick aimed at gaming a speed trap. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you already know we cover the tech side of Formula One deeper than most. If that is the kind of breakdown you value, hit subscribe. We have a lot more to break down as this case grows heading into Japan and beyond. Now, here is where the other side of the argument finds its best ground, and it comes straight from the rule system the FIA built for the 2026 season. Clause Q of the active aero rules says that motor movement must be tracked by sensors linked to the FIA standard ECU. This is not a still-standing bend test done in the pit lane, the kind of check that teams spent decades learning to pass while their wings flex freely at speed. This is live, constant, real-time data. Every motor position, every shift, every split second of movement gets logged and sent to the FIA's tracking systems during every session. If the wing's motor truly takes 800 milliseconds to finish its stroke, the FIA's rule-checking software would have flagged it before any fan ever opened a video editing app. The tracking system was built to catch this exact kind of gap. It is the 2026 rule's direct answer to decades of bendy wing fights where still-standing tests failed to match what happened at speed. This opens up a fully legal reason for the play: visual oddness. Even if the motor finishes its position change within 400 milliseconds, clearing the sensor and the ECU, the carbon fiber body of the flap could take extra time to visually settle under air load. Carbon fiber panels under hundreds of kilos of air pressure can bend, wobble, and flex before landing on their final shape. What the footage caught might not be the motor moving slowly at all. It might be the wing skin bouncing after the motor has already finished its stroke. The rule covers motor position as logged by the sensors. It does not cover how fast every square centimeter of carbon fiber skin finds its still shape under rough airflow. Both Mercedes cars passed post-race checks at the Chinese Grand Prix, but Ferrari's formal request forces Tombaz's office to run a deeper review, matching the sensor data against the visual proof frame by frame. So here is where Ferrari's complaint fits into the sweep of Formula One history, and the pattern across 3 decades of wing legality fights is strikingly steady. The only real ban for a front wing rule break in the modern era came at the 2014 Abu Dhabi Grand. FIA checkers found a hidden leaf spring built inside Red Bull's front wing. This was not a grey area. It was a physical device, left off the design papers, that actively changed how the wing bent under load. Both cars were thrown out of qualifying. The key fact is that the breach involved a hidden part, something tucked inside the wing that was never shown to the FIA. That is a world apart from a design choice that is visible, handed in, and cleared through pre-season sign-off. Every other wing fight in the past 20 years has gone down a different road. A team finds a clever reading of the rules, rivals notice, complaints get filed, the FIA looks into it, and the rules get tighter going forward, with no backward penalties. Red Bull's front wings from 2010 through 2012 bent under real air loads at speed, despite passing every still-standing test. The game was pegged at half a second per lap. The FIA made the bend tests harder. Red Bull was given several races to fix it. In 2021, during the Hamilton versus Verstappen title fight, Red Bull's rear wing drew the same focus. Tombazis, the same man now running the Mercedes case, brought in new bend tests. Red Bull was again given time to fix it. Results stood. McLaren's 2024 rear wing at Baku had a slot gap that opened under airload, making a mini DRS without ECU control. The FIA told McLaren to change it before Singapore. The Baku results stayed the same. Teams have always played with flap flex at the top of the wing. The push and pull between aero ideas and rule policing is as old as the rules themselves. The pattern is clear. Backward punishment is saved for hidden devices and outright fraud. Clever readings of unclear rules get dealt with through updates aimed at future races. The governing body guards fairness going forward, rather than rewriting results earned under the rules as as they were read at the time, and that track record directly shapes the most likely ending. If the FIA's sensor data confirms that Mercedes' motor finishes its stroke within 400 milliseconds, with the visual oddness coming from carbon fiber bending under air load, Mercedes gets cleared. The storm fades into another chapter of the sport's endless grey area engineering story. Ferrari will need to find their speed on track, not in a hearing room. If the data shows a real two-phase system, or any sign the sensors were gamed, the most likely outcome is a rule update forcing Mercedes to change the design before a future race. Results from Shanghai would almost surely stand, unless the FIA finds a hidden device on the level of Red Bull's 2014 leaf spring. Nothing points to anything that extreme. Ferrari could push harder at the Japanese Grand Prix later this week. A formal protest would force a steward's hearing and a binding ruling within the race weekend. The 5-week gap that follows gives Tombazi's tech office extra time for a full review. The points race makes the timing feel planned. Mercedes holds 98 builders' title points after 2 races. Ferrari sits at 67, and the gap is growing. Russell and Antonelli have won 3 of the first 4 sessions between them. Ferrari's SF26 has the corner speed to fight, but Mercedes' aero edge on the straights has been the deciding factor. Going after the legality of the car in front is the fastest move on the board that does not mean building a faster car. Mercedes seemed to see this coming. At Shanghai, the message from the team was that they expected political knives in the weeks ahead. Those words showed up before Ferrari's complaint did, which MDE them look like foresight rather than spin. As of today, the FIA has taken in Ferrari's formal request for clarity and confirmed that the tech team is reviewing Mercedes' active aero data from the Chinese Grand Prix. A ruling has not come down, and Ferrari has not yet pushed to a formal protest. Both Mercedes' W17 cars stay in the Shanghai results. The Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka begins practice on Friday.